huge battle was fought between the two most powerful clans of Japan, the Genji and the Heike. The battle resulted in the utter decimation of the entire Heike clan, including the women and children, including the child emperor Antoku Tenno. Control of Japan now belonged to the Genji. Several years later, a temple was built near the graves of the Heike in an attempt to appease their spirits. However, it only partially worked. The spirits of the Heike were known to do strange things on occasion, proving they were not yet at peace. This story is about one of those incidents. Several hundred years later, a young blind man named Hoichi lived at the temple. He was known around the area for his prodigious skill on the biwa. He and the priest of the temple were good friends. One night, the priest came to Hoichi.
Hoichi, a man in the village has died. Acolyte and I are going to town to perform a service. We'll see you later.
Hoichi couldn't sleep due to the heat of the night, and so he went outside to practice his biwa. Midnight came and went, and the priest still did not return. Unfortunately, it was still too hot to sleep. Suddenly, Hoichi heard steps in the garden coming from the back gate. A deep voice cut through the night imperiously as a samurai calling to his servant.
Hoichi,
Hi, I have mind. Calls me.
do not be afraid. I have a message for you. My lord is in this town with several of his servants. He wishes to hear of the Battle of Denora and see where it is taking place. He has heard of your renowned skill and wishes for you to sing of the battle for the court. Please, take your biwa and come with me at once.
In those times, if one valued his life, one did not disobey a samurai's order. After walking quickly for some time, guided by a hand of iron, Hoichi found himself handed over to a woman who led him through many hallways to where he was to perform. Along the way, Hoichi heard many people talking with a courtly manner, but he could not make out any words. A different woman, the head of all of the female attendants, spoke.
Hoichi, do not be afraid. Now, we will hear the history of the Heike. Doesn't very long story, which probably can tell. The Battle of Danmaruta, for it is a very sad story.
Then Hoichi began to sing, and such was his skill that vividly came the twang of the bow, the pounding of the drums, the clash of steel on steel, and the agony of the dying. Hoichi overheard words of praise from his audience and was encouraged. When he came to the death leap of the innocents, such a wail of despair and grief came from his audience that Hoichi was afraid. There was a long silence. Finally, the woman spoke again.
Now we truly know the depths of your skill. Our Lord wishes to give you a gift, but you must return every night for the next 6 nights to perform. The samurai will come for you, but do not tell anyone of what you know, for our Lord is traveling incognito. You are free to leave now.
By the time Hoichi returned to the temple, it was nearly dawn. The priest had not returned until very late, and so did not check on Hoichi, assuming him to be asleep. And so Hoichi's absence had not been discovered. He was able to rest during the day and told no one about his excursion the night before. That night, the samurai came once again, and Hoichi again performed wonderfully. However, this absence was noticed. When he returned, the priest called Hoichi to him and asked,
Where did you go last night? It's dangerous out there for a blind man. Where did you go? Maybe there's some servants.
I have some personal business to attend to. I cannot wait, my friend.
The priest was surprised by Hoichi's evasiveness because it was against his friend's nature. He was afraid that Hoichi had been bewitched by evil spirits and ordered a servant to follow Hoichi if he went anywhere. The very next night, Hoichi left the temple and the servant followed him. It was a gloomy and stormy night, and the servant very quickly lost Hoichi in the rain. He apparently was walking very quickly, a strange thing given his blindness and the condition of the weather. The servant ran through town, searching for Hoichi. Finally, as he gave up and started walking back to the temple, walking along the shore, he heard the sound of the biwa coming from the direction of the cemetery. The servant ran to see and found Hoichi sitting in the rain in front of the tomb of Antoku Tenno, singing of the Battle of Danmaruta. Around him, the ghostly figures of the dead appeared. Never before had so many ghosts been seen.
Hoichi-san, you're bewitched.
But Hoichi appeared not to hear. He sang even more wildly than before.
Hoichi-san,
To drop me in front of such important people, how very rude. The servant burst into laughter at the absurdity of the situation. Convinced now that Hoichi was under spell, the servant forced Hoichi to stand up and forced him back to the temple. After changing into dry clothing, the priest forced the story out of Hoichi one part at a time. After hearing the full tale, the priest said,
You're in great danger. Your skill with Bila has brought you really strange trouble. Spirits of the Heke have been calling you and camping in the graveyard all these nights. It's kind of creepy. And anyway, I think I have a solution. My uncle and I have to leave and go perform another service because another guy died. We can text. We shoot your text on you and you'll be safe as long as you fly. Right back.
And so, before sunset, the priest and his servant wrote on every part of his body, even the soles of his feet, the text of one of the Holy Sutras. When everything had been finished, the priest said to Hoichi,
Okay, tonight, guys sit outside. Sit there like nothing happened. Because the dad will come back for you. If you make a noise, and don't rip your apart. Because that was probably the plan all along. You've done sitting. So, I'm gonna leave now. It's very still. And, oh, you make a noise as long as you make out, because, nobody can tell you about your death, so have fun.
After saying this, the priest and his servant left, leaving Hoichi sitting outside alone. Hours passed, and finally he heard steps.
Hoichi.
Hoichi held his breath and sat motionless.
Hoichi. Ah, this is no good. Here is the biwa, but of the player only these 2 ears remain. That explains it. He must have vanished. I will take these 2 ears to my lord to prove that I followed his orders.
At that moment, Hoichi felt his ears gripped with hands of iron and ripped off. Even though the pain was agonizing, Hoichi said nothing. The footfalls left, and Hoichi felt the blood trickling down his head and neck. Before sunrise, the priest returned. He ran to where Hoichi was sitting and cried out in horror. After hearing a friendly voice, Hoichi started sobbing and told the priest what had happened.
Oh no, I trusted my acolyte to paint on your ears. But, should have made sure I did that myself. Oh well, nothing we can do here for now. Let's go get your bandaged up. The bright side, heck, it can't come out anymore.
With the help of a good doctor, Hoichi soon recovered. His story was spread far and wide, and he quickly became famous. Many living noble persons came to hear his singing, and many gave large donations to him, so that he soon became a very wealthy man. But from this time on, he was known only as MimiNashiHoichi, Hoichi the Earless. The end.